Good evening, everybody. Welcome to 2025 annual Professor Krishna Ayyar Endowment lecture and award ceremony. There are many distinguished personalities here. So I welcome Dr. C.K. Ramachandran for the presidential address, please.
Good evening, everyone. I am supposed to be delivering the presidential address, but I am not the president of this forum. Professor Dr. MGS sir was the founder president of Calicut Heritage Forum. And when he was not well, on his suggestion, we had two vice presidents, K.K. Mohammed and Dr. Noon. On MGS advice, we nominated Sri K.K. Mohammed as the working president of Calicut Heritage Forum. I continue to be the secretary of the Calicut Heritage Forum Trust. And the new convener is Shrutin Lal. Sri Mohammed has had to go to Delhi to receive an award. So he has excused himself. So I am here deputizing for Mr. Mohammed. Calicut Heritage Forum, for those of you who do not know, was formed in 2007, almost 20 years ago. There was a meeting of some persons in the Chavra Cultural Center in December 2007. And the director of Chavra Cultural Center, Father Jolly Alivili, he wanted me to be there, and he said, MGS wants you to be there. I had no acquaintance with Professor MGS till then. I was not fortunate enough to be his student. Only thing that we knew each other because my sister and my brother were his students long ago when he had become lecturer in Guru College in 54 or so, 54, 56. That is the only relationship that we had. And one more thing is that in my Guru College days, the room next to ours was occupied by the research center of Calicut University. That room was occupied by Dr. T.K. Ravindran and Professor MGS, who had come to establish this research center. And there was only one student who happened to be my cousin, Bharati Nair. So I've watched them from a distance, poring over documents and stampage. Then I was out of Kerala. I came back and then we met casually at the Paragon restaurant. Dr. MGS was fond of good food, and so we met over lunch at Paragon. We did not fix up a lunch meeting. Then I was surprised when I got this message saying that I should attend that meeting. That was a very well attended meeting. Now, Mr. Anwar was telling that he was also present in that meeting, Dr. Anwar. So, where all these people were, vice president, first president of the MGS, vice president was Dr. Madan Guti, one of the vice presidents. Second vice president was Professor Achudan, who was somebody in this university. He was with REC also, I believe. So then MGS said, you can be the convener. he told me. I said, I've never been a student of history. And I agreed. So far, we have been continuing like this. So, and in 2014, 13-14, he said, I must do something to honor my teacher, Professor K.V. Krishna Ayyar. So I contacted the Krishna Ayyar family, and Mr. Swaminathan here is the grandson-in-law of K.V. Krishna Ayyar. And he and his wife, late Mrs. Swaminathan, they responded. They said we would like to join hands with Calicut Heritage Forum in honoring Professor Krishna Ayyar. That is how this lecture series started. And they have been continuing to support us, and we are grateful for that. Professor MGS, I used to interact with him from 2007 to 2025, this year. I found him a very warm-hearted person, and a person who was totally democratic in his approach. He did not make any distinction between the high and mighty. And I've seen students who had no contacts with MGS coming to his house and requesting him for a meeting. And he taking time to meet them and guide them, because he was so much involved with history and historians that he did not want anybody to be left out. So, and I was surprised. I used to sometimes wonder. He used to write so much, and most of those writings, when I saw him, were either introductions or prefaces to various books. He never disappointed any author. Anybody who approached him for preface, he would write it. He would go through the book in detail and write the preface. I asked Madam, Mrs. MGS, how does he find time for these things? Because he used to write his autobiography also, which was serialized those days. And she told me that he used to wake up at night and write throughout the night sometimes. And or read or dictate to her. So either of these things. And then he was very particular about reading the newspapers. Even when he was not well, somebody had to read it out to him, because he was aware of what was happening around us. So this is the person whom I met, and we interacted very closely. And I became interested in Calicut's history only because of Professor MGS. And Professor MGS has acknowledged his debt to two people, Professor K.V. Krishna Ayyar for putting the seed of history in him, and Professor Elangulam Kunjambillai, who guided him for his PhD partly. And his PhD work was so great that a historian of world repute like A.L. Basham was his external examiner. And he said, this is one of the best theses I have come across in my life. So this is the sort of quality that Professor MGS was capable of producing. Unfortunately, he was a man, not unfortunately, he was a man of principles. So he had made, he did not know how to please the powers. So with the result, he annoyed people, very powerful people like Irfan Habib and other historians. And he had to quit his Indian History Council, Indian Council of Historical Research job sometimes as secretary and chairman. But then he stuck to his principles, and till the end he was happy because he believed that what he said or did was correct. So today we are, this meeting, we are honoring Professor MGS by inviting one of his closest associates, Dr. Anwar, to speak on MGS, and I am sure the spirit of Professor K.V. Krishna would have approved it, and they must be listening here somewhere, both MGS and K.V. Krishna, because they were kindred souls. Thank you very much. I find in the audience a distinguished person who is one of the biggest consumers of MGS research. So he has come all the way from the United States. Many of you would know Maddie as the blogger. So he's known as, his full name is Manmadan Ulatal. Please, I would request you to say a few words.
Thank you, CK, and the conveners of the event for giving me an opportunity. MGS Narayanan, my story is connected or somewhat similar to a very interesting character in Mahabharata. If you have heard of a person called Ekalavya. Ekalavya was very interested in archery, and he wanted to learn it. He decided that Dronacharya would be his guru. But Drona would not take him as his disciple, so he hid on the side and watched how he taught Arjuna, and he went on to become a better archer than Arjuna. So Admariyana, that's my story. I have never met MGS Narayanan, but I respected him. I read every single paper of his, and I think I have most of his books, and the others I get from the library system in the US. So I'm very much indebted to MGS for whatever he has taught me in absentia. So that's the first thing I need to say about him. His writings are probably seminal. You can, if you want to really get to medieval Kerala history or Malabar history or the Chera part, which preceded that, you have to read MGS's books. Some of them are slightly difficult. You need to be more involved in this to really understand a bit of it. But if you go after it, you will really learn a lot. And there's nobody else who has done better than him in this particular subject. On top of all that, I happened to read his autobiography. It's called Jalagangal. CK talked about it being serialized in Madhurumi, but I happened to chance across the book. A very interesting book, especially the first parts of the book. He talks about his young life in and around Calicut, his studies here, his friends, his teachers, and so on. And there are some beautiful anecdotes for those who are interested in the man and his life. I'll give you a couple of examples. In 1960, he writes about his days in the Kerala University. He found a circular somewhere on the board saying that a lot of these old books and collections in the Kerala University were being disposed of because they are rotting away in the archives, not very well maintained and so on. So he goes and sees how valuable these are, and he bought the entire Travancore archaeological series at 4 annas per volume. So, he managed to collect that, and he was so happy when he got this collection of books finally. Another thing that you may not know about him is he was a fantastic, he was a very good artist and a poet. He used to publish his poems as well. So, very interesting, multifaceted genius, actually. The artist Nambudiri was a good friend of his, something you may not know. But he reserves a good portion of his earlier days to his teacher, K.V. Krishna. He says, look, the reason why I got interested in history was only because of Krishna. I was his student, he says, and Krishna taught history in a completely different way. He did not just give lectures in the class. He used to take us to the mosque, and he used to take us to the temple, and he would act and gesticulate and scream and shout, and and that's how he taught us history, and that's why I learned it, and I became fascinated by the history of Kerala. So you can see how important that relationship was, the teacher and the student, and how the interest was imparted from one to the other. I always tell, people who tell, some people say, look, I used to learn history, but I never found it interesting. And I tell them, look, unless somebody makes it interesting with anecdotes and so on, it's not going to be easy for a new student. So all teachers, I hope, will do things like Krishna. You have to act out. You have to tell the story for people to understand it and like it. Another interesting story is, when he wanted a job, the first job he applied for was the post that his teacher had vacated, K.V. Krishnayar's post. Unfortunately, he didn't get the position. It was given to a Nambiar, who he thought was not really deserving, but fortunately for him, he immediately went and took a job in a cashew factory. And he got this job, and that's how he became a teacher of history after his teacher. So very interesting stories in his book, Jalagangal. I hope, I heard it's being republished, and so it's something that you should pick up and read. He used to be fascinated by Kosambi and his writings. K. M. Panikar's way of handling history was also something he was very fascinated in. So those are the things that you can get from his book. There are many other parts of his life covered in it, but these parts are particularly interesting. At least it was for me. His articles on Calicut has been published as another book, which is something you all should read. But the most important of his books is actually, it is the one where he deals with about 10 or so wrong conceptions, like the story about Parashurama's axe, the story of Parashi dying, swallowing the diamond ring, the place where Vasco da Gama really landed. These are all the things he explains. He says, see how people manipulate, how people have changed the entire story to suit certain reasons. So he says, see, be aware of it. Today we call it fake news, but in those days, it was not called that. So he says, take a look at it, think about it, analyze it. Don't just believe things that people say. Ask questions, and you will find that there is probably something different behind what you read. So it's something that I have also learned, and I have also learned it the hard way, because many of the books tell you that this is what happened, but with very little fact behind it. In the old days, they never had annotations and all that. They used to give a list of references, but the exact source was never mentioned by some authors. And when you start to now look into it, you will find that there are some errors. So anyway, something that MGS insisted that students of history look at. But anyway, I don't want to continue on and talk more. We have a very distinguished person. By the way, the book Jalagangal has one chapter starting with Dr. Anwar and how he thought much about his student, and how he did the analysis part, which I was just talking about, and how he really got into the matter seriously. So he does start one of his chapters with him, and there's a beautiful photograph in that book which shows all the Calicut historians, Keshwan Velathar, Champak, not Calicut, but major historians, Keshwan Velathar, Champaka Lakshmi, Professor Sridharan, from Christian College, and Dr. Anwar is there in that photo, and there is a Bengali lady, Alok Kes. I see, okay, wonderful. So yeah, they were all, and it was a fascinating photograph as well. So anyway, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, CK, thank you. And I will now. Thank you.
Now it's the time for the award function. I invite Mr. Swaminathan, family member of Professor K.V. Krishna Ayyar, to come and hand over the award to Ms. Krishna, who's this year's award winner. Okay. Sure. So, thank you, Mr. Swaminathan, and congratulations, Deepthi, again. I invite Deepthi to deliver her acceptance speech. Deepthi.
A warm good evening to one and all. I'm actually very grateful while I'm standing in front of a couple of distinguished historians as well as history enthusiasts right in front of me, as well as on the dais. I'm very grateful to each and every members of the Calicut Heritage Forum for awarding me with this piece of happiness in this year. I don't know how to start with, but I'm supposed to present my topic. To give an overview of my topic within a short span of time, I think. And I was just listening to the talk by C.K. Ramachandran sir, and also the other person who was talking about MGS Narayanan and all. And I am coming from a literary background, and I don't know, I was like, I think history and literature are like blood and bond. They coexist each other, and that could be the reason why am I here today. Because you see how history is being created out of literature, right? From the time immemorial, we write history, we enter into the field of historiography, making use of many of the literary specimens that we have excavated or that we may have discovered, isn't it? So when you look at Kerala history as well, you see the same thing. Kerala history actually at some point of time was centered around this literary specimen called Keralolpati. For a long period of time, that was being controlled or centered as the basic or the primary source of history of Kerala per se. But later, historians have evolved, and more ways of entering into the field of historiography came up. So the point is, I do believe that why am I doing this thesis is because I believe that literature and history coexist each other, and they are not interdisciplinary. In fact, they are transdisciplinary in nature. So that is the purpose of why I'm doing this particular topic, and my topic is actually talking about the Buddhist discourse or the discourse of Buddhist legacy in Kerala, and analysis on cultural history and literature from Kerala. So before delving into my topic, Buddhist tradition and all, I was thinking about the very place that I'm standing right now, which is Calicut or Kozhikode per se. You know something? In 19th century, when you look at the history of neo-Buddhist movement, that actually added impetus to the Renaissance or Kerala modernity per se, happened in the very same spot, Calicut. I think 50 kilometers away from here, there you would see this custom road where you have this Buddha Vihar. Buddha Vihar is right over there. And this has been started with the great men or great legends of the time, with Midavadisi, Krishna, and also Manjeri Ramayya, and the Dhammaskanda, Buddhist monk Dhammaskanda from Ceylon and all that. And Dr. K. Sugadan, who is also an enthusiast in Buddhist cultural history, talk about this thing, because there are two people trees coming, people trees over there that is being planted by this neo-Buddhist movement that was started way back in 19th century with the support of these great men. And this people tree was actually being taken from Ceylon, Anuradhapura in Sri Lanka. And this people tree, this sapling that was being brought from Anuradhapura was actually a daughter a daughter sapling that was being brought from Bodhagaya by Sangamitra, Ashoka's daughter. So he said it very in a very sort of dramatic way that the sapling now we see in that customs rod, which becomes a huge tree right now, is a granddaughter of the Bodhagaya Buddhist sapling or Buddhist sapling per se. So that is a history of Calicut. So I'm very happy and feeling privileged to stand in front of this very shorts of Calicut while talking about it. So another thing is like why I actually select this topic, because there is an oft-quoted term of Buddha: believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. This is the very logical footing of this statement is actually enshrined in my memory, which recall me every time about the reason behind me choosing this particular topic, I would say. So many of the studies related to this have concentrated on the spiritual as well as the social influence of Buddhism in Kerala. And my study is actually focusing on the socio-cultural as well as the literary aspect of influence of Buddhist legacy in the shores of Kerala. I mean, I would like to start with Professor K.V. Krishna Ayyar's a very phenomenal thought on this, because Professor K.V. Krishna Ayyar himself have recorded in his phenomenal work a short history of Kerala like this. He said that the Chakyar Kutha of the Hindu temples is an adaptation of the Buddhist monks' religious exposition. Addressing the masses in their mother tongue, the Jain Buddhist monks have also improved Tamil. The Jain and Buddhist Sanghas again might have served as a model of Shankaracharya's monastic order. See, Buddhism reached the shores of Kerala. According to traditional historians or the Buddhist followers who believe that Buddhism reached the shores of Kerala in and around 3rd century BC during the time of missionary activities of King Ashoka. And but recent studies have proved, example, the Greater Magadha, one of the monumental work written by Johannes Bronkhorst, talk about Buddhism as a religion that coexists with Vedic religion in northern part of India. So this kind of readings and interpretations are arriving in this historical juncture about this particular concept as of now. Because we have this kind of monumental pieces, especially from Ashoka's rock edicts number 2, number 13, which talk about the Buddhist legacy of Kerala, where Kerala is being described as Kerala Putra, or Kerala Putra references, and how Ashokan have instituted a number of missionaries for the sake of welfare, for promoting welfare among animals as well as men in general in South India. So you have the Vikramaditya Varaguna's pallium copper plates, again talking about this Buddhist legacy and all. So when it comes to Professor K.V. Krishna Ayyar's statement, we say that Chakyar Kutha, as we all know, is considered to be a temple art. Nowadays you see it or you ascribe it as a temple art, especially being carried out in Hindu temples. But this Chakyar is actually a reference to Shakyar. Shakya means Shakya Muni. And that could be the reason why historians like Professor K.V. Krishna Ayyar uses it in that instance, because it was a synonym in medieval Kerala where Buddha has been called as Shakya. Because in most of the, even in the Thevaram Partugal, which is a Shaivate collection of songs, right? Thevaram Partugal, and in that Thevaram Partugal itself, you see the Buddhist people or Buddhist monks or the Buddhist followers are referred to as Shakya or Chakyar. So, what is the purpose of Chakyas? What could have been the action that is being entitled upon them? Their main purpose was to render the stories or Dhamma Kathas in a language that is known to the common masses through the act of Kutha. So it's a case with Nangyar. Nangyar were considered to be Buddhist yoginis of the time, or during medieval time. Things have changed and evolution happened when Hinduization or like Hindu assimilation happened, Buddhism definitely become part and parcel of it. That is a story. So, sorry, I had an issue with my throat. Thank you. So, and there is obviously there's a literature part associated with it, and that is a Chambu literature, isn't it? The Chambu literature is a part which include the narrative part of the Kooth, the person who is actually doing the act of Kooth or Kodiyatam. And this Chambu literature was in ancient times, I mean talking about ancient and early period of medieval Kerala, was a rendition of Jataka stories and Buddhist Dharma or exposition of Buddhist Dharma to the common masses. And the language used was something very peculiar about it because it was a mixed language with Sanskrit, Tamil, Prakrit and Pali. A sort of mixed language is being used in that Manipravala literature of that time, and this is cited as a very remarkable feature of Tantric Buddhism in ancient period or early medieval period Kerala history by historians who believe who are researching on Buddhist history and legacy. So even Mr. M.B. Shanguni Nayyar in his famous work Points of Contact Between Prakrit and Malayalam substantiate this point. And how this Dalit Bahujan all majoritarian sort of art forms are being considered to be a folk art or considered to be confined to the framework of folk art in later phase is a question that I'm trying to ponder. Because the Kudiyatam, Kalamilitha are certain types of art forms where you can see the reflections of Tantric Buddhism to a great extent. And the various temple inscriptions recovered during the colonial times also justify this fact. And even in the famous work of MGS, the famous historian MGS Narayanan, you will see in his work the Sera inscription, which is a companion volume to Perimals of Kerala, where he refers to the mentioning of land ownership being given to Chakyars of the time. And the examples that I would like to quote is the Kollur Madam copper plates that MGS Narayanan have included in it, and the Tirunalli inscription where they talk about Anyutuvar. Anyutuvar were considered to be the Buddhist trading guilds of the time. And then there are Chola inscriptions, then the Thevaram songs, as I've already mentioned. So this is the real history that is actually being sidelined to a great extent when it comes to mainstream historiography. And the same can be seen in the worship of many gods like Ayyappan, Bhagavati, Chatan, etc. Chatan is actually a synonym for Buddha. And Dr. P.C. Alexander also states this very thing, and he also talked about the worship of many of Hindu temples now concentrating on Bhagavatis, and Bhagavatis are considered to be a Shaiva deity per se. And this will give you information about how the assimilation or cultural assimilation of Buddhist deities into the Hindu fold happened during early medieval period of Kerala history to a great extent. And the ritualistic depictions of Bauddha mandalas is a very peculiar feature of Tantric Buddhism. And the same, which can be seen in many of the practices of Tibet, China, Nepal, and all, is what you see in Kalamilitha in Kerala right now. You have Naga Kalam, Bhagavati Kalam, Chatan Kalam, and all those kalams, you see the same kind of Tantric rituals being practiced. So Shasta is said to be a Sanskritized version of Chatan, and all these kinds of Mahayana as well as Tantric traditions are, at the end of the day, reaching up to 8th century, being engulfed into the fold of Hinduism and later came to be known as Hinduistic rituals in general. So the purpose of my study is like looking at historiography as a archive. Archives means as a book stock, I would say, because history is, or historiography is a set of gaps that needs to be filled. A lot of gaps are there. And what am I trying to do is to read out or to fill out these gaps in whatever way that my study is helping me out. I had a cold yesterday, that's why. Am I taking all the time? If please excuse, okay. As I already said, there are so many literary specimens which I can show you up as part of my study. Especially to showcase this Buddhist linkage, I refer to the Sangam literature in general. The Sangam literature where I I can talk about Silapadikaram and Manimekhale, which refers to the Chera kings as Athan. Athan is actually a word that is being, a Pali sort of word, which actually refers to Arhat in Buddhist. Arhatan means the Buddhist monks who attained enlightenment per se. So if you are referring a Chera king as Arhat or Athan, he supposedly be a Buddhist. Okay, so that's the reason why you have rulers like Udiyan, Cheraladan, etc. In Kerala history. So you have another monumental work, Manjusri Moolakalpam, which was a tantric text that is talking about the erotic ritualistic performances of goddess Manjusri, which is being excavated all around 12th century CE. So there is the references of Buddhism in Vadakkan Pattugal and also obviously in Keralolpati. And Mushika Vamsha also you will find the references to Sri Moolavasam, a very famous Buddhist vihara in ancient Kerala, which has been taken over by sea encroachment in later part of 12th century. And in 4th century, we know that the Calabra's reign was there, and Calabra's kings were famous for their Buddhist, being Buddhist followers for a long period of time. And you have Gandhavamsham and also Jina Lankaram, Abhidharma Avadaram, etc. as work, to cite the few. And when it comes to 6th century, again, the concept of Manimekhale, I have told you now. Manimekhale is considered to be a Buddhist yogini who actually followed this Tantric cult. Tantric means which include definitely Maithuna Bhavangal would be there. Maithuna Bhavangal means erotic kinds of sensibility would be there in Tantric cult. And where you will see Madhavi as well as Manimekhale, her daughter Manimekhale, depicting this art of seduction or skillful art of tantric sex and all that things way back in ancient period. And they were considered to be Buddhist yoginis of the time. But in later period, when it comes to medieval era, medieval Kerala period, they were considered as, what am I say, as temple dancers. Temple dancers or these temple dancers were relegated to the position of Devadasis in later period of time. And Devadasis definitely come to the come to the profession of prostitution in later phase of history. So that is how this relegation happened. And obviously Rukmini Arundel, as we all know, is a classical, very world famous classical dancer, and she is also coming from the Devadasi background. And when you look at history, how this legacy of transition would reveal to you the unheard and alternative part of history in general. So again, coming back to historian MGS Narayanan, he talks about Bhagavad-Jugam in his work, which is a Sanskrit drama on Mahayana tradition. Mahayana tradition, where it's Attapragara. Attapragara means the narrative thing behind this drama, the action drama, refers to certain Buddhist texts like Prajnaparamida, Panjarakshaga, Tadagata Guhya, etc. So, this kind of references to Vajrayana Buddhism are very familiar even in Theyyam worship, especially in Malabar region. Yogi Bhairavan is considered to be a Theyyam deity, and this Yogi Bhairavan is yet another Bodhisattva considered. So these are the things, these are the references that you find in history, literary specimens, as well as epistemological and cultural evidences to prove that certain history is not being written and certain history is being relegated or marginalized. But even from the traditional historians, MGS Narayanan, Keshavan Veluthat, and also Panikar sir, I have done a lot of work to at least refer to such kinds of alternative histories to a great extent through their work of penning down historiography. And you have the contributions of Ayurvedic tradition and also many of the temples which we see today in Kerala ascribed to certain curing of certain ailments like psychotic issues. There are certain places where you can go and the deity is supposed to clear that particular treatment or give cure to particular diseases in general. So these are certain practices that you would see never ever in any other religion but only in Buddhism. So that is a thing, that is a contribution that is being given. Even in Amrakosha is a very monumental work in the field of Ayurveda, which is obviously written by Amara Simha. He is also a Buddhist monk, and you will see the same contributions in the field of education as well. But even there are 18 universities that is being started by King Ashoka himself. You know that ancient universities have been started by Buddhist viharas and Buddhist followers of the time. And we will see the same in Kerala as well, especially Tiruvanchikulam or Vanji or Kandallur are very important or like citable sort of places where you would probably see this ancient vestiges of universities. So what am I trying to say is, during the 18th century, coming back to the 8th century, see, there is this assimilation, cultural assimilation happened to Mahayana tradition as well as the Tantric tradition of Buddhism, which in a way happened because of the rise of Shaivism and Vaishnavism, and as a result of the works of Shankara as well as Kumarila Bhatta. And in this contemporary backdrop that I am analyzing my thesis in general, where I am talking about the literature as something where literature as something where you can place at this particular juncture in history. As Dr. Ambedkar has rightly quoted in his one of his work, I think it is in Annihilation of Caste. Basically, the history of India is nothing but the constant conflict between Brahmanism and Buddhism in general. And in this vantage point that I'm trying to locate my thesis and my work of research. And that's a overview about my topic in general. And I once again thank Cultural Heritage Forum for giving me an opportunity to talk about this, as well as also helping me out with this Endowment Award, which is definitely adding sort of thing, a fueling sort of thing for me in my further research. And I thank my almost all the people who are here right in front of me, and also my partner Manish Mohan, and also my best friends who are here, Safan and his wife, and all the people who took a speck of time from their life to be here and listen to all these things. Thank you all.
If you have any questions or comments, please ask her. Please feel free to ask her. Anybody?
There is some mention. So are you excluding that area from your area of research, or are you including Tamil Nadu also in this?
No, the thing is, when you talk about ancient Kerala, Tamil Nadu is Tamil Nadu is inclusive in it, because you can't talk about ancient Kerala without mentioning Tamilagam, because in ancient Kerala, Tamil was a language, main language, and Malayalam not yet developed. So you can't call Kerala as a separate entity during that time. So Kerala, when I talk about Kerala, Sangam literature is there because I'm talking about Tamilagam. That is it, Dravidian Tamilagam in general, because Kerala cannot be separated in ancient times like that. So that is, I make sense, I think. Okay. Did I answer your question? I don't know.
No, I have this also in mind.
Ah.
For instance, you spoke about a few practices. Don't you think that there will be similar practices, maybe ritualistic or otherwise, prevalent in those areas of Tamil? I believe that it was all ancient Tamil country. But would you like to do some research in those areas? Say, for instance, in Madurai or Tanjavur or
Are you talking about contemporary persisting rituals in Tamil and Madurai areas? I'm not including that into my research. Right now I'm talking about, like my area of research include the Kerala territory of ancient Kerala, medieval Kerala as well as contemporary Kerala. So in contemporary Kerala, the rituals in Tamil Nadu won't be included, but obviously, as you said, the rituals that happened in medieval age as well as ancient period are obviously part and parcel of it. Thank you. Thank you. Because Madhavi and when it comes to Madhavi and her daughter Manimekalesh, they were actually people who follow this Vaishya cult. Vaishya means nowadays it's being called as Vaishya, but it was actually a tantric form of profession that they actually followed. The tantric ritualistic performance, that is the art of seduction, is what Manimekale and Madhavi was following. So that's what I said. Yeah, in medieval period, this has been converted to Devadasi cult because they become temple dancers and there is no ownership. Temple become the proper sole honor of that particular lady who is actually doing this, and later it become part and parcel of prostitution. That's how it being relegated from the position of being a yogini to that of prostitution or prostitutes per se.
There was another use in Kutachi.
Yeah, Kutachi is also even, yeah. Yeah, same thing. The Kut, you see Nangyar, Nangichi, yeah, Nangyar is also there. And even certain words are being used in Malayalam. Yeah, it was answer. Actually, now it is being used. You know, when we fall down, what we actually say, Ayyo. And Ayyo is actually Ayyan. Ayyan means Buddha. You actually referring to Buddha, Ayyo. But now we feel don't say Ayyo. It is a negative form of thing, you know. So that is another thing is like why Tonanadu Kodakki Paattu. We have already seen that, right? Who is this Koda? Koda is another synonym of Buddha. You have Kodapuram, Kodamangalam. There you have a lot of toponymical evidence for that. But right now we are using or associating these things with a negative meaning. That is a thing. So that is how history is not innocent. That's what my point is.